Welcome to this predicted paper from onmaths that is based on the advanced information given to us by the exam boards. Please use this paper in addition to your other revision. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing. Multiples are just a numbers times table, so to write the multiples of 11, we're just going to do 1 times 11, 2 times 11, 3 times 11, 4 times 11, and 5 times 11. Now we're not going to do any more because it says it just wants the first 5. So I'm just going to write those down in a list with commas, separating them. The first thing to do when working out what angle things need to be on a pie chart is to add up the frequencies. So we're going to do 14 plus 7 plus 3, and we find out that that's 24. Then we're going to find the angle that one item would be. So one item is going to be, well, there are 360 degrees in a triangle, and there are 24 items. So we're going to do 360 divided by 24. And that gives us 15 degrees. So each item is worth 15 degrees, or will take up 15 degrees. So to find out the angle for red, well, we've got 14 items, times it by 15, and that will give us 210 degrees. And we're just going to times each of these by 15, which will be 105, and the final one times 15 is 45 degrees. Add them up and they add up to 360, which is good. They need to add up to 360. So we get our protractor, rest it on a pie chart. Now we know 180 is down here, so the first thing we're going to do is just mark that on, because the first angle is going to be 210, so we know that's 180 so far. So I'm going to turn my protractor around, and from 180, 210 will be another 30, so I'm just going to plot that on. And then I'm going to join it up. So start at the center and join that up. And we're going to stop when the circle stops. Then to do 105, we're going to put our protractor in the middle. And we're going to look at 105, which will be up here. And then we're just going to join it up with a straight line. And then we're just going to check the last angle. And so if I put my protractor on it, and it is 45 degrees. Perfect. Now, an important step to not miss is you need to label them. And so the first one is red, the second one is blue, and then the final one is other. So to simplify 10 to 22 to 26, I'm going to have to find something that I can divide the 10, the 22 and the 26 by. The biggest number I can do that for is 2. So if you look, 10 can be divided by 5 but nothing else can, 22 can be divided by 11 but nothing else can, and 26 by 13 but nothing else can. The only thing we can divide all of them by is 2. So that will be 5 to 11 to 13. So the answer is 5 to 11 to 13. All probabilities have to add up to 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away these probabilities away from 1. So we're going to do 1 take away 0.09 plus 0.13 plus 0.18. And so that's going to be 0.4. 1 take away 0.4 is 0.6. So what we need to do is find out where the graph is at its highest, and so it's highest here. And so if we go down from there, we find out what year it is. Well, these years seem to be going up in 1, so that's 1950, 1951, 1952. So the answer would be 1952. To find the factors of 30, we're just going to write down all the factor pairs, or all the pairs of numbers that multiply together to make 30. So 1 times 30 is 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10. Now 4 doesn't go because 30 is not in the 4 times table. 5 times 6, and we notice that if we pick 6, it's just going to be 6 times 5, it's just going to be the opposite. So the factors are all the numbers that we've just written down, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10, 15, and 30. So we've got to first of all work out how many parts there are altogether. So we're told that the ratio of red, yellow and green is 3 to 2 to 4. So to work out how many parts there are altogether, we do 3 plus 2 plus 4, which is 9 parts. So there's 9 equal piles of sweets. Okay, but to work out what one part or one pile of sweets is worth, we're going to get the 99 sweets and divide it by the amount of piles, and that's going to be 11. So one part is worth 11 sweets. We're asked to find out how many yellow sweets, and yellow is the middle one, so it's going to be the 2. So yellow has 2 piles of 11 sweets. 2 times 11 is going to be 22, so it's going to be 22 sweets. So for this question, we need to understand that the units we currently have are in meters per second, and the units we want to get them to or convert them to are kilometers per hour. Now to convert the meters part is quite easy, because all we need to do is divide by 1,000. And when you divide the top of a fraction by 1,000, all you do is you just divide the whole thing by 1,000. So we're just going to divide the whole thing by 1,000. So we've got 95, and we're going to divide the whole thing by 1,000, so we get 0.095, and that's going to be kilometers per second, because we haven't dealt with the seconds yet. So that's the easy part. The more difficult part is converting the seconds to hours. So to convert seconds to hours, we divide by 60 and then divide by 60. So we divide it by 360. Seems simple enough. But the seconds are at the bottom of a fraction, and when you divide the bottom of a fraction by something, you actually times the whole fraction by that thing. So we're going to times the whole fraction by 360. And so we do 0.095 times 360, and you get the answer of 342 kilometers per hour. So our answer is 342 kilometers per hour. The experimental probability is the successful outcomes divided by the total number of outcomes. So we're looking for the probability that it's white, so it's going to be 25 over, and we're just going to do 35 plus 25 plus 31, which is 91, and that's our probability, 25 over 91. Be careful when it's a total, you must include all of the outcomes, so red, white and other. So to draw this straight line graph, what we're going to do is just pick 3x coordinates, which is -2, 0 and 2. So I'm going to start off with -2, and I'm just going to substitute it into the equation we've got here. So y equals -2 times -2, because that's what we're putting in, plus 8. -2 times -2 is positive 4. So it's going to be 4 plus 8, which is going to be 12. So at -2, our graph is at 12, which will be here. Then we're going to put in x equals 0. So it's going to be y equals -2 times 0 plus 8. Anything times 0 is just 0, so it's just going to be 0 plus 8, or just 8. So it's going to be 0, 8 will be our next coordinate. And then finally we've got x equals 2. So it's going to be y equals -2 times 2 plus 8. -2 times 2 is going to be -4. And -4 plus 8, which is the same as 8 take away 4, so that's going to be 4. So at 2 it's going to be 4. So we get our ruler to be able to draw this in. We try our best to make sure it's as neat as we can, and make sure it continues on for the whole graph, so no gaps. Instead of doing 0.43 times 16, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 43 times 16. So I'm just going to get rid of the decimal and just change it to 43. But I've got to remember what I've done. So how have I managed to do that? Well, I've times it by 100, and that'll be important at the end. And to do 43 times 16, there are loads and loads of different methods. Just pick whichever method you enjoy doing or that you find easiest. I'm going to do the grid method, but it by no means is the best method. It's just the one I'm choosing to do. So 43 is 40 and 3, and 16 is 10 and 6. So 40 times 10 is 400, 40 times 6 is 240, 10 times 3 is 30, and 3 times 6 is 18. Then I'm just going to add them all together. So 400 plus 240 plus 30 plus 18. And when you add those all together, you get 688. Okay. Now, the problem is that obviously this is not going to equal 688. What we've done though is we've timesed it by 100. So to find the answer, all we need to do is divide this, undo that times by 100, so divide it by 100. When we divide that by 100, we get 6.88. To work out the circumference, we need to first of all work out what the diameter of this is. And to do that, we just draw a line across the circle, and we can see the diameter is twice as big as the radius. So the diameter is going to be the radius times 2, which is 28. Formula for the circumference of a circle is just pi times the diameter, which will be pi times 28. Now to write this in terms of pi, which the question asked for, we just put the number first and then pi. So it will be 28 pi. So we start off by working out what 100% of 240 is. Well, that's obviously going to be 240. And a nice easy one to start off with is 10%. We're trying to get to 21%, so 10% is always a good one to start with. So we divide by 10, which would be 24. And because we try to get to 21%, we'll need to find out what 1% is. And 1%, we just divide the 10% by 10 again, so it would be 2.4. And then we need to find out what 20% is. And 20%, we just double the 10%, so it would be 48. And so 21% is this plus this, because 1 plus 20 is 21. So we add these together, so 2.4 plus 48. Probably don't need to do this formally. Probably do this in our heads. So 50.4, but it says to increase 240 by that amount. So we need to get 240. We need to add the 50.4. Probably, again, don't need to show the working out for this. We can do this in our heads, but it's a bit easier to see what we're doing. So the answer would be 290.4. Just like when you're simplifying fractions, you can't have decimals at the top and bottom. You can't have decimals at the top, at the left and right of a ratio. So we're going to have to get rid of this decimal. And the way we're going to do that is just simply times each side by 10. And that will leave 4, and that will be 60. Now we can simplify this further, because I can divide left and right by 2. So that would be 2 to 30. And I can actually do the same again. I can divide them by 2 again. And that would be 1 to 15. Now you might have just divided by 4, and that would also give you the right answer. In fact, there's a couple of different methods that you can get the same answer with. So we're going to start by doing a multiplication grid. And we're multiplying the x minus 11 so x and minus 11, by the x minus 3, so x and then minus 3. So x times x is x squared, x times minus 11 is minus 11x, x times minus 3 is minus 3x, and minus 3 times minus 11 is positive 33 because two minuses make a plus. Put the terms together, and you'll notice here that we can simplify. So we've got two x terms, so we can collect the x terms, and that will give us x squared minus 14x plus 33. So our answer is x squared minus 14x plus 33. So in this question, we basically need to add the 2 3/4 and the 2 2/5. So we're going to do 2 3/4 plus 2 2/5. Now, if I just rewrite this, 2 3/4 can be written as 2 plus 3/4 plus 2 plus 2 1/5, or 2/5. So we can add the two 2's together to make 4. And then all we need to do is add the 3/4 and the 2/5. So when you add two numbers with different denominators, what we need to do is get the common denominators. And we do that by just quickly writing out the 4 and the 5 times table and seeing what the first number in both their times tables is. 16, 20, and 5, 10, 15, 20. So that's 20. So we need to get the bottoms of the fractions to 20. Now for 3/4, to get the bottom to equal 20, we need to times the 4 by 5. And whatever you do to the bottom, you've got to do to the top, so times that by 5 as well, which will be 15. And for 2/5, we'll get that bottom to 20. So we times that by 4. And so we've got times the top by 4 as well to make it 8. So it's going to be 15 over 20 plus 8 over 20. So we need to add the numerators. So it would be 15 plus 8, which is going to be 23 over 20. Now that is a top-heavy fraction, so we can rewrite that as 1 and 3/20. And we can add the 4 and the 1 together to make 5 and 3/20. So the answer is 5 and 3/20. So we're looking to write a formula for the cost in pounds of hiring a microwave for X amount of days. So the cost is C, so it's going to be C equals, and it says it's going to be 55 pence a day. Now, it wants the answer in pounds, so we need to convert this 55 pence into pounds. So that's going to be 0.55. And it's going to be 0.55 times the amount of days. Well, it says the amount of days is X. So it's going to be 0.55x. Then it says that there's just a one-off cost of £15. So you're going to have to pay £15 regardless. So we're just going to add 15 onto that. So the answer would be C equals 0.55x plus 15. It's important to remember our speed, distance, time triangle. So we've got speed equals distance over time. And here we are given a distance because from here we're 16 kilometers away from home. So the distance, let's just draw another triangle, the distance will be 16. And we're told that the speed is 32 kilometers per hour. So the speed is 32. So to find the time, we're going to do 16 divided by 32. So the time is a half an hour. And half an hour would bring us, if we start here, half an hour would bring us to 2030 because it's 8 o'clock where we start and we end, therefore, half an hour later. When we estimate, we normally round to one significant figure. So what I'm going to do is just rewrite this question, but rounding everything to one significant figure. But I'm just going to miss out this square root for now. So 3.3 would just be 3, and 4.7 would just be 5. Now, the problem with this 27 is square rooting 27 is difficult, especially without a calculator, and estimating should be done without a calculator. But if I round it to the nearest significant figure, if I round it to one significant figure, that will make it 30. Now 30 is no easier to work out. So square numbers are a bit of an exception. When you've got square root, it's a bit of an exception. You've got to find it to the nearest square number. So 27 to the nearest square number is 25. So square root of 25 is 5. And then 5 take away 3 is 2, times 5 is going to be 10. So our answer is 10. So to find the locus of points that are 10 centimeters away from a point, you need to measure 10 centimeters on a pair of compasses. And then you put the point at A and draw them. Now I'm going to try my best to do this. It's probably not going to look perfect, but I'll do my best. And the length here, which is supposed to be, probably isn't exactly, but this part here is going to be 10 centimeters to get the full marks, and obviously you want the circle to be a little bit nicer than the one I've drawn, but try and get it as perfect as you can. And the best way of doing that is just don't push down too much and just move the page around with your compass being stationary. We're going to start by looking at the numerator and the denominator separately. So looking at the numerator first, we've got 9 to the power 16 times 9 to the power 46. Now, when you have two powers of the same base, so they're both 9, base 9, but base is the big number, then what you can do is you can add the indices. So we're going to do 16 plus 46, which is 62. So it's 9 to the power of 62. And looking at the denominator, well, you've got a power inside and outside the bracket. Whenever you have that, you can just multiply them. So it'd be 9 to the power of 40. Now, whenever you've got a division between two powers of the same base, which we have here, it's 9 to the power of 62 divided by 9 to the power of 40, we just take away the indices. So it'd be 62, take away 40, which will be 9 to the power of 22. So our answer is 9 to the power of 22. The formula y equals mx plus c includes this m, and the m means the gradient. So if we're looking for something that is parallel to y equals 9x plus 18, we're looking at this number here. And for it to be parallel, it needs to have the same gradient. So we could just write y equals 9x plus or subtract anything. Or we could just write y equals 9x. I'm going to say plus 5. So to find the area of a rectangle, we just multiply the width and the length. So that's what we're going to do here. But whenever you have an expression representing a length or a width or anything really, you just put brackets around it. So we go u minus 2 times u plus 9. Okay, and the way we do this is with our grid. And just going to draw out the grid. And so we've got u minus 2, and we're multiplying it by u plus 9. Don't want too many for some reason. And so we've got u times u, which is u squared, u times minus 2, which is minus 2u, 9 times u, which is 9u, and 9 times minus 2, which is minus 18. And what we're going to do is we're just normally going to be able to add these ones together. So our answer will be u squared, and then we're going to do 9u plus minus 2u. Well, that's just going to be 9u take away 2u, which is 7u. So plus 7u, and then minus 18 at the end. So in this question, we are told that the centre of enlargement is at 6, 4. So let's just put across there. And what I'm going to do is just draw ray lines from the centre of enlargement, and we're just going to go through each of the corners of our shape A. And we're going to just check whether it goes through the corner of shape B, which it does on this one. Let's just keep going. Yeah, it does on this one. But it does not on this one. So it says find the coordinate of the vertex of shape B that is not correct. So the coordinate is this one here, and so that would be -4, 1. With these questions, what we need to do is write down what we're given in the question. So it says that the car accelerates at 6 meters per second squared. So we've got the acceleration, which is 6 meters per second squared. And I'm using the same letters as it has in the question here. It says for 21 seconds, so we've got the time, which is here. So the time is 21 seconds. Now, there is also something else it gives us, because it says from rest. So the initial velocity is going to be 0. And it asks us to find the final velocity. So we're looking for what v is. So we're looking to see which of the 3 formulae at the top involve an A, a T, a U, and a V. So it's not going to be this one because this has an S. It's not going to be this one because this has an S. It's going to be the top one. So what we do is we write down the top one. V equals U plus AT. And we're looking for V, so I'm going to keep V as a V. U is 0 plus A, which is 6, times T, which is 21. 6 times 21 is 126. Obviously 0 plus 126 is just 126. The units are meters and seconds throughout, so it's going to be 126 meters per second. The first thing to notice is that the tree must be closer to CD than AB. So if we draw a line across the middle, it can't be in the top bit because that would be closer to line AB. The second piece of information that is given to us is it must be at least 11 meters away from point C. So we get our compass out and measure 11 centimeters, or whatever the scale we're using in this diagram is, and we draw a quarter circle from C. And it says shade the region that it can be planted. So this is the region that represents closer to line CD than AB, but also not within 11 meters of point C. So the rules of indices state that if you have a power inside and outside of a bracket, we just multiply them together. So it's 10 to the power of -12 times -12. 2 negatives make a positive, and 12 times 12 is 144. So we need to first of all work out the amount of machine minutes it takes to make a toy. And what we do is we multiply the amount of machines by the amount of minutes. So 5 times 40, which would be 200. So if we had one machine, it would take 200 minutes to create one toy. Here we're asked, well, okay, what if we wanted a toy every 8 minutes? So we get the 200 and we divide it by 8. And when we do that, we get 25. So if we had 25 machines, we would be able to make it every 8 minutes. And the logic here is 5 machines. So this is machines, and this is minutes, is 40. Then 8 minutes, if you think about it, we divide that by 5 to get to 8. And so if we divide the amount of minutes by 5, we actually times the amount of machines required by 5. So this is called an inverse relationship. So if one doubles, the other halves. If one divided by 5, the other will times by 5. So our answer here is 25 machines. So this question is asking us really to divide the 5 3/4 by 1 3/4. So we're going to do 5 3/4 divided by 1 3/4, because we're finding out how many of each of these towels, which is 1 3/4 meter, can be made when the total amount of cotton is 5 3/4. So first thing we're going to do is convert them to mixed numbers, to top-heavy or improper fractions, because at the moment they're mixed numbers and we can't divide or times if they're mixed. So we times the 5 by the 4 and add it to the top, which will be 20, and then add it to the top, 23, and then do the same. 1 times 4 is 4, plus it to the top is 7/4. Now a little trick here is KFC. We keep the first fraction, we flip the second fraction, and we change the divide sign to a times sign. So we're going to keep this first fraction as it is, change that divide to a times, and flip the second fraction. Okay, whenever we multiply, we just multiply the tops, so 23 times 4, which is 92, and we times the bottoms, which will be 28. And now we need to convert this back into a mixed number. So first of all, actually we can simplify this, because we can divide top and bottom by 4, so that would be 23/7, and then make this a mixed number. So 7's into 23 go 3 whole ones, and then obviously 2 remainders, so it's 2/7. Now it asks us for the amount of towels that she can sew patterns into. Now the issue here is that she will do 3 whole towels but then have some left over, but she doesn't have enough to create a 4th towel, so it's just going to be 3 as an answer. Sometimes easier with these questions to multiply both numbers by, say, 10 or 100 or 1,000. So if we look at the 0.06, if we times that by 100, it would make the question a lot easier. But with a division, if you times one of the numbers by 100, you have to times the other one by 100. So we just go times the 30 by 100, and times the 0.06 by 100 to make that 0.6. And this actually is the same calculation as 30 divided by 0.06. The reason being is that you can write that as a fraction, and with fractions you can just times to the top by something and times the bottom by something. It doesn't change the fraction at all. It just keeps it exactly the same. So we're going to use the bus stop method to find out what that is. So we're going to divide that out. 6 doesn't go into 3, so carry that. 6 is into 30, go 5, 6 into 0, 6 into 0, so that's going to be 500. There's 2 parts to this power. I'm just going to do it a bit bigger so we can see. We've got the negative here, and the negative will mean that we will find the reciprocal, and we've got this 3 here, which is just what the power will be. So how do we find the reciprocal? Well, if you think about the number 10, if you had to write that as a fraction, you would write it as 10/1. And so to find the reciprocal of it, we're just going to flip that fraction. So this will now become 1/10. We haven't dealt with that cube yet. So we're going to cube top and bottom with that fraction. Well, it's not going to do anything to the top because 1 cubed is just 1. But the bottom will turn into 1,000. So it's going to be 1/1000. So to answer this question, you need to just know the answer off by heart. There is a diagram that can help us actually get there. And if we just draw a right angle triangle and put the lengths as 1, we've got right angle here. We can use Pythagoras, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, to work out the fact that this is going to be √2. Because it's an isosceles triangle, this angle here is going to be 45 degrees, and same with the bottom right one, but we're not interested in that. When we label it with our marked angle here, we've got the adjacent is here, and the hypotenuse is here. Now we know from trigonometry that cos x equals a/h. The angle is going to be cos 45, and a is going to be 1, and h is going to be √2. Now, this is a bit of a strange one with 1 over root 2, because we need to actually be able to rationalise the denominator. And basically what that means, if you haven't done surds yet, or you aren't doing surds, is you times Tom1 by root 2. And so we end up with root 2 over 2. So if you ever see 1 over root 2 is absolutely fine as an answer, but if you ever see the answer as root 2 over 2, the two are actually exactly the same. So writing 1 over root 2 is fine, or writing root 2 over 2 is also correct. We're going to start by focusing on the A and B, which is 8 and 16. So in the middle is going to be 8 and 16. The next thing we're going to focus on is the fact that A is all the multiples of 4. Now 8 and 16 have both already been taken because they're in the middle. So the remaining multiples of 4 are the 4 there and the 12 there. So the next ones I'm going to focus on is the A or B. So A or B is in A, in B, or in the middle. So if we cross out the ones we've already used, so we've already used the 8 and 16 and the 4 and the 12, that leaves the 1 and the 9. We'll cross that out of our other list. And there's only 2 left in our everything list at the top. We've got the 3 and we've got the 11. So on the outside we have 3 and we have 11. So we can write this as a fraction. So it would be 2.84 times 10 to the power of 11 over 4 times 10 to the power of minus 2. What we can do is split this up into 2 fractions. So 2.84 over 4 times 10 to the power 11 over 10 to the power of 2, or minus 2. Okay, so we're going to start by doing 2.84 divided by 4. So we're going to just do the bus stop method. So 4 on the outside, and we've got 2.84 on the inside. 4's into 2 don't go, so carry the 2 across. 4's into 28 go 7, and 4's into 4 go 1. So it's going to be 0.71 times, and then the rules of indices say that if you divide two powers of the same base, they're both 10, then you just take away the power. So it's 11 take away minus 2. Now the two minuses, the two takeaways, actually convert to a plus, so it would be 11 plus 2, which would be 13, so it would be 10 to the power of 13. Now we've got a bit of a problem here because standard form must have a number between 1 and 10, and not including 10, at this position here, and this is obviously less than 1, so we need to convert this into standard form. So what we can do is just write the number out again. So I'm going to write this as an actual number, so it's 10 to the power of 13, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, fill in the zeros. So it would be 7, 1 and all those zeros, and then I'm going to put it back into standard form. Now the decimal point will need to be here to make it 7.1, so it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's going to be 7.1 times 10 to the power of 12. Now, with a bit of practice, you don't need to write out the whole number. You'll be able to just know that if you convert that into 7.1, then you just need to take away 1 from the power. But if you're not sure, and it's not an unreasonable number like 10 to the power of 105, then it's just worth sometimes just writing out the actual number and being 100% sure that you've got it the right way around. So we're going to first of all realise that this is a right angle triangle and we've got 2 lengths and an angle involved, therefore it's going to be trigonometry. So we're going to just label the sides first. The one opposite right angle is the hypotenuse, opposite the marked angle is the opposite, and the one between the right angle and the marked angle is the adjacent. Now the adjacent doesn't have a number or a letter next to it, so it's not interesting, so get rid of that. Next we're going to do our trigonometry triangles. And so we've got SO, CA, TOA. And we are just crossed out the adjacent, so we don't need this one and we don't need this one. And we're going to end up with SO, which is short for sine the angle equals opposite over hypotenuse. The angle is marked as x, so sine x equals √3 over 2. You need to know from memory that sine 60 is √3 over 2. And notice here that the x therefore is going to equal 60. So we need to first of all work out how many black and red counters there are at the start. Now if you look at the fraction of the probability of picking a black, in your first pick is 2 over 5, and then the second pick is 1 over 4. So you can see that there's one less at the numerator and then one less overall. So that means we can conclude that there are 2 blacks at the start, 2 black counters, and if there are 2 black counters and there's only black and red counters, then there must be 3 red counters, so that to make up the fact that it's 2 over 5. Okay, so to find the missing probabilities, the first couple are quite simple because we know that, let's do a different colour, this and this have to add up to 1. And so if the probability of picking a black there is 1/4, then the probability of picking a red must be 3 over 4, because these have to add up to 1. Same with these two, these have to add up to 1. So if we've got 2/5 at the top, the bottom one must be 3/5. And finally, we've got these two here. Now these two here we're not given any fractions for, but given the fact that we started with 2 black and 3 red, we've picked one of the red, so we've got 1 less red, and that means we've got 2 black counters and 2 red counters. So it means that the probability of picking a black is 2 over 4, or 1/2, and the probability of picking a red is 2 over 4, or 1/2. First thing I'm going to do is add these column vectors. So we're going to add the tops first, and then we're going to add the bottoms. So it's plus minus 14. And so at the top it would be -4, and 11 take away 14 is -3. Then I go pick a point on my shape, and the the top one tells us how far right we're going. So we know we're going 4 to the left because it's obviously a negative. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. The bottom one tells us how far up we're going. Well, it's going to be down because it's a -3. So 1, 2, 3. And we can do that for each of the other points. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And when we've done that, we can join them all up with straight lines. And label the new shape B. When we multiply numbers, it doesn't actually matter which order we multiply them. So I can actually rewrite this as 7 times 9 times 10 to the power of 2 times 10 to the power of 9. 7 times 9 is 63. And 10 to the power of 2 times 10 to the power of 9, we add the powers, so it'd be 10 to the power of 11. Now here we've got a problem. It looks like standard form, but it is not standard form. Because standard form has to be a number between 1 and 10, but not including 10. And here we've got 63. So what I'm going to do is just quickly write out what number this is. So we've got the decimal point here. And you don't need to do this, but I find it a bit easier to show what we're doing. So here we've got 10 to the power of 11. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We fill these all out with zeros, and that's the number we've created here. A lot of zeros. Now, to make it a number between 1 and 10, not including 10, the decimal point, it needs to be here. So we want that to end up with 6.3 times 10 to the power of, well, let's work that out now. So we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it's going to be 10 to the power of 12. Now you don't need to do all the working out I've just shown there. You just need to know when you convert that 63 into a 6.3, you need to add 1 to the power. We're going to write this out again just to give us a bit more space. So we've got s equals 4 minus 13t over t minus 5. I'm going to get our lines in. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is get rid of this fraction. Always get rid of any fractions. I'm going to do that by multiplying both sides by t minus 5. So we're going to end up with s brackets t minus 5 equals 4 minus 13t. I'm going to break open those brackets just by multiplying them out. So it's st minus 5s equals 4 minus 13t. And the objective here is to get all the t's on the same side. So I'm going to add the 5s and I'm going to add the 13t. So add 5s and then add 13t. And so effectively we're just moving this on the other side and this on the other side. So we're left with st plus 13t equals 4 plus 5s. Now when we've got the t's on the same side, we can factorise out the t's. So t bracket s plus 13 equals 4 plus 5s. And then we can get rid of this by dividing both sides by s plus 13. And so we're left with t equals 4 plus 5s over s plus 13. So our answer is 4 plus 5s, all of that over s plus 13. And it can be either way around, so I could have 5s plus 4 over 13 plus s, or anything like that. We can write the equation of any linear graph as y equals mx plus c. So m is the gradient and c is the y-intercept. So we've got to find what the gradient and the y-intercept are. Well, I'm going to first of all try and figure out what the gradient is, because we're actually given some clues here. We're told that the line is perpendicular to the equation given. Now I'm going to rewrite this a little bit just to make it a bit clearer what the gradient of this is. So I'm going to write this as minus 1 over 12. I'm just going to leave a bit more of a gap there. Minus 1 over 12 x plus 12. And you can see that the number before the x, the coefficient of the x, is minus 1 over 12. But we're not told that it's parallel to that, so it's not, the equation that we've got is not going to have the gradient as minus 1 over 12. We're told it's perpendicular. Now, when two things are perpendicular, to find the gradient of the other one, if we know one of them, you've got to change the sign and find the reciprocal of the fraction. So to find our gradient, we're going to change the sign, so it's negative, so our gradient is going to be positive, and we're going to flip it. We're going to find the reciprocal. Reciprocal of 1 over 12 will be 12 over 1, or just 12. So the gradient of our line is going to be 12. To find the y-intercept, we're going to use the points given to us. So we've got x equals 3 and y equals 4 for a point on our line. We're going to substitute those into the equation we've got. So it's going to be 40 equals 12 times 3 plus c. Put in our solving lines. 12 times 3 is 36. And we're going to take away that 36 both sides. So it's going to be 4 equals c, or c equals 4. So our equation will be y equals 12x plus 4. So if the area of the rectangle is 10 and one of the lengths is root 75, to find the other length we do the area divided by the length given, and that will work out what the other length is. Root 75 though is something that can be simplified, so let's simplify that. And it's root 25 root 3, so it's 5 root 3. So this equals 10 over 5 root 3. Now notice top and bottom can be simplified, so that becomes 2 over root 3. And we're asked to rationalise the denominator, so we're going to times this by root 3 over root 3. And so we end up with 2 root 3 over 3. So our answer is 2 root 3 over 3. Here we're told that y is inversely proportional to x squared, so we've got y is proportional to 1 over x squared, that's what inversely means. And we want to change that proportionality sign for an equals, and to do that we need to times the right hand side by k. K represents a constant. Next step, we're going to put in x equals 7 and y equals 137.2 to find out what k is. So 137.2 equals k over 7 squared. Well, we know 7 squared is just 49. I'm going to solve that by timesing both sides by 49. And when we do that, we find that k is equal to 6,722.8. Going to get that equation we wrote earlier, and we're just going to rewrite it, but we know what k is now. We know it's 6722.8. And we're going to rewrite that to find out what x is when y is 34.3. So we're going to substitute the 34.3 in. And there's a little trick here. If you've got the unknown at the bottom, what you can do is actually just swap these two over. And effectively what we're doing there is timesing both sides by x squared and dividing both sides by 34.3. So we've got x squared equals 6722.8 over 34.3. And then we want to solve it, so get our lines in, square root both sides. And when you square root, that fraction equals 196, square root it, it will equal 14. So our answer is x equals 14. So we're going to start off just by writing down the quadratic. And what we're going to do is we're going to move everything onto the right hand side apart from the x squared. So we're going to take away 11x and we're going to add 3 both sides. So we're going to end up with x squared equals effectively 3 minus 11x. Then we're going to square root both sides. And so we have x equals the square root of 3 minus 11x. And that's the way to come up with an iteration formula, is to isolate the x squared of a quadratic and then square root it, and then you've got this kind of x equals, and it involves the square root and the 3 and the minus x, 11x, and you can see that that is option C with the choices, so the answer is just C. Okay, so we're just expanding this similar to when we expand a quadratic double bracket, and so you can choose any method you want. I'm just going to choose the grid method. But it doesn't really matter. You pick a method you're comfortable with. So we've got 4 root 7, and we've got 9 and then minus root 7. So we're going to do 9 times 4, which is 36, 9 times root 7, which is just 9 root 7, 4 times minus root 7, so that'd be minus 4 root 7, and then minus and a positive make them negative, and then root 7 times root 7 is just going to be root 49 because you times together the number inside the surd, and then root 49 is just 7, so that's just going to be minus 7. Then we can add these two together, which will give us 29, and then we can add the surds, so actually it's going to be taking away because we've got minus 4 root 7 there, so 9 root 7 take away 4 root 7 is going to be plus 5 root 7. Compare it to the question, a plus b root 7. The a would be 29 and the b would be 5. I'm going to start by getting x equal to the 0.847 recurring. And I'm just going to show that with 3 dots. And we want to bring forward everything that's not part of the recurring pattern. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what 10x is. And that's going to be 8.4747. So what I've done is I've just got the recurring pattern after the decimal point. And what I want to do now is bring forward one of the occurrences of the recurring pattern. So the 4 and the 7, just one of them. So we're going to times it by 1,000. We'll find out 1,000x. And so it would be 847.4747, etc., etc. Next, I'm going to take away everything. So 1000x take away 10x, and that's going to be 990x. And then 847.4747, etc. Take away 8.4747, etc. It's just going to be the same as 847 take away 8, because the recurring stuff will just cancel each other out. So 847 take away 8 is 839. And now I'm just going to put my lines in. And so what I'm going to do now is just divide both sides by 990. And so on the left hand side we've got x, and on the right hand side we have 839 divided by or over 990. So as a fraction it's going to be 839 over 990. So for this question, first thing to notice is there's a divide there, and we can actually just write this as a fraction. So 10 plus root 2 over 14 plus root 2. I'm going to keep the brackets there. We don't need them when it's in a fraction, but it will help us for the next step. So we're asked to transport this or change this into a fraction without a surd at the bottom. And so it's basically asking us to rationalise the denominator. Now, when you have two terms, including a surd at the bottom, we need to do something a bit special with this. And the thing we do is we times it by the opposite bracket. And what I mean by that is if it's 14 plus root 2, we times it by 14 minus root 2. And we've got to do the same to the top. And the reason for that is essentially here all we're doing is we're timesing it by 1, because 14 minus root 2 over 14 minus root 2 is just 1. So we're timesing it by 1, so we're not changing the fraction at all. Okay, let's draw a grid to work out what that will equal. And you can use any method you want. You can use double smiles and rainbows, FOIL, whatever method you have to multiply two such brackets. I'm going to start off with the top. The top is 10 plus root 2 times 14 minus root 2. So 14 times 10 is 140. 14 times root 2 is just 14 root 2. 10 times minus root 2 is minus 10 root 2. And then a minus and a positive make a minus, and root 2 times root 2 is just 2. Now, when you expand surdy brackets, these two and these two will add together. Okay, so we're going to start off with the numbers. 140 take away 2 is 138. And then we'll do the surd. So 14 root 2 take away 10 root 2 is plus 4 root 2. Okay, so the top is going to be 138 plus 4 root 2. And let's do the bottom. And I like these grids because you can see if you've made any mistakes quite quickly with these. You can check your working. So 14 plus root 2 times 14 minus root 2. You'll see why in a second we do the opposite. So 14 times 14 is 196. 14 root 2 minus 14 root 2 and then minus 2. So you can see here now there's a 14 root 2 plus minus a 14 root 2. Let's just cancel each other out to 0. So we get rid of the surd. and then 196 take away 2, which is 194. So we've got 194 at the bottom. Now something we notice here is that all the terms in the fraction are even, therefore we can halve everything. So 138 halved is 69, 4 root 2 halved is 2 root 2, and 194 halved is 97. And so that would be 69 there, and that would be 2, and then that would be 97. You can complete a unique version of this paper by going to our onmaths site. Onmaths is full of free content to help you prepare for your exams, such as topic-based papers, demon questions, and mini mocks. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing.